A sign of how polarizing the Mueller investigation has become, however, a new survey by Morning Consult and Politico shows that 41% of Americans do not believe Mueller exonerated President Trump, while 35% believe he did, even though he said he didn't the other day under oath. Public opinion on impeachment remains steady, with 46% of voters opposing impeachment, 37% supporting it. That's 46 against impeachment right now, 37 against, or rather 46 against, 37 for. Meanwhile, the number of Democrats supporting impeachment is growing. Here's an up-to-date list of the 97 Democrats in the House who support launching an impeachment inquiry right now. That's quite a list. The number of Democrats supporting impeachment has grown from 58 back in December of 2017 when the House voted on impeachment the first time. Well, since Mueller's public testimony on Wednesday, 7 additional members of the House have voiced their support for impeachment. And as of today, those backing impeachment in the House are 121 votes short of a required majority. That includes the lone former Republican member, Justin Amash, who supports putting the president on trial as well. Speaker Pelosi, who has been trying to balance the diverging factions of her party, defended her approach.
Some of your Democratic colleagues believe you're simply trying to run out the clock on impeachment. Are you trying to run out the clock?
No, I'm not trying to run out the clock. Let's get sophisticated about this, okay? So I'm willing to take whatever heat there is there to say when the decision will be made in a timely fashion. This isn't endless. And when we have the best, strongest possible case.
For more, I'm joined by Susan Page, USA Today Washington Bureau Chief, and Rob Reiner, actor, director, and activist. Thank you both for joining us. Susan, I had Jackie Speier last night, one of the top people loyal to Speaker Pelosi, and she says September 1 is a good day to look at because you got to look ahead. It takes 6 months to do this. If you follow the Nixon time frame, you can't be doing it right in the middle of a presidential debate season, for example, because the voters will then say, wait a minute, this is our call at this point. It seems to me there's a reasonable idea. It seems to me it's coming close to do it or don't do it and stop talking about it.
Right. Labor Day is probably about that moment. And, you know, that will come after members of Congress will have spent 6 weeks, mostly back in their districts, listening to voters and hearing whether voters in their districts think impeachment ought to be the priority or should they be focusing on
what are they hoping to, what do they expect?
Well, I think it depends what kind of district you're from. If you're from a solidly Democratic district like AOC, you're probably going to hear a lot of energy for impeachment. But if you're from one of those swing districts that determine who holds the majority in the House, I suspect members will continue to hear what they've heard in the past, which is voters care more about issues that affect their own lives, like health care and education and the economy.
Rob, it seems to me Pelosi's operating like most people do based on experience. And she saw her party take over the House in 2018, last year, with a message that really didn't focus on impeachment, but focused on health care instead of bread and butter issues. I get the sense, and she is a pure Paul in the best sense of the word. She knows what works at the home and back home in those districts. And most of them, and she wants to hold the 218 that controls the House. Certainly in the west side of L.A. or the west side of New York, there are liberal bastions where you're going to face a primary opponent like Jerry Nadler's facing already one, a very attractive opponent, I hear. They're all facing them. Richie Neal up in Western Massachusetts, he's got a primary opponent, a couple of them. They're worried at home about different things. Your thoughts about it?
I'm going to disagree a little bit with your analysis in that the 2018 election was, yes, there were some kitchen table issues, health care and education, jobs and so on. But it was also about holding this president accountable. We heard a lot about taking the majority and having the subpoena power to hold this president accountable. Now that we have it, I think that's what's going to happen. You're going to see a two-track approach. Today, essentially, if you look carefully, and I've had some conversations since this came out with Lawrence Tribe and others, since the filing was made by Chairman Nadler to the courts to access the grand jury material and access the ability to get Don McGahn to come and testify, If you look at that filing, the word impeachment is used many, 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 many times. And you can argue about impeachment inquiry or impeachment process or impeachment proceedings. But the fact of the matter is, once a judicial body, once the Judiciary Committee becomes a judicial body and talks about impeachment as a mechanism by which they're going to access documents and compel witnesses, then that speeds up the process. And I think for those of us who have been clamoring to get this thing on the road, that's in a sense started today. And if you look very carefully, that is what started today.
But, Rob, I don't believe that. I believe we're looking at a process of just one more thing. Oh, we were going to get Mueller, his report. We got Mueller's report. Then we got Mueller in person. Oh, he's going to dramatize and televise the whole thing. And then that didn't work. And now it's, we're going to get McGahn. That's going to turn everybody around. These numbers don't look good. I'm going to sue on this. These numbers don't look good.
They don't look good, and they've been pretty consistent. And even though most Americans have said that they don't believe President Trump was exonerated and that Mueller's credibility has gone up, including among Republicans, that has not increased the overall number of Americans who support impeachment. Now, most Democrats support impeachment, but if you look at the overall number, you don't get to a majority. And in fact, you get predominance of Americans saying they do not support the idea of impeachment. And what Chairman Nadler did today in the court filings, it seems he tries to have it both ways, tries to say you're doing an impeachment investigation without actually forcing the House to take an impeachment vote. And I don't know how persuasive that's going to be.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.